Hey everybody, and Tony here with a review of an anime I don't particularly care for and one I've been wanting to get off my chest for quite some time. I'm of course referring to Dragonaut The Resonance, which was directed by Manabu Ono. It was created also by Studio Gonzo alongside NAS and had its initial airing in Japan from October 3, 2007 and ended its run on March 26, 2008 with 25 episodes plus one OVA, and it was released in the United States by Funimation back in 2009. Now, I first heard about this anime through a Facebook chat I had with a very good friend of mine slash fellow anime reviewer, Nate Milbank, who is basically very well known as Otaku Nate from Otaku Nate's Lost Worlds of Anime. You should really check out his stuff. He does a very fantastic job reviewing a lot of obscure titles, a lot of them good, some of them meh, some of them not really fantastic. But he does a very good job stating his very honest opinions about them, and he's a lot of fun. So about 1 year ago, we had a chat on an anime that he did not really like, and he felt like it was an anime that he also reviewed on his show as well, which was called Dragonaut The Resonance. He asked me if I've heard about this before, and I said no, because I never heard about it. I didn't know that it ever existed, and, well, I guess one can say that this was a very obscure title, especially in terms of Studio Gonzo standards. And not to mention, when it comes to Studio Gonzo, it's an anime company which can be either hit and miss, and at times can have a lot of hardcore fans and a lot of people who don't really care for it, or just people who don't really like a lot of the stuff they have. They've made a lot of good stuff, like Chrono Crusade being my personal favorite. But they've also had other stuff that were also really great, like also Welcome to the NHK, which was excellent. And, well, they also had some stuff that were not always up to par with those two that I really love. At times, they also have the certain trademark of the animation being, well, even though it's really good at times, when the visuals end up sloppy and kind of inconsistent, it ends up being very conspicuous. So, back to my chat with Nate, I told him I've never heard about this. He said that this anime in particular wasn't really great in terms of anything, even though it had a few okay elements. And he said that the worst character to ever exist in this anime was Kazuki Tachibana. So I found myself wondering, well, what's so bad about this anime? Until that one fateful day where Nate appointed me to be his assistant scriptwriter for his review of Dragonaut The Resonance. I was very excited about this because, well, to really work with a reviewer I absolutely like was very much something that only happened once in a blue moon, and I'm absolutely thankful for it. So he even recommended that I also watch the anime in order to see what jokes I can also come up with and what other trivia I'm also kind of missing as well. So I watched it, and let me just tell you that the experience I had watching Dragonaut The Resonance almost wanted me to just skip it entirely. In fact, I dropped this anime after about, 10 to probably 14 episodes. Yeah, it was quite depressing, even though I tried to keep up with this anime, but there were just a lot of things that just made me give up on this anime entirely. Starting with its story. Now, the story does start off well with seeing a young teenager by the name of Jean saying farewell to his childhood friend Kazuki and his dad. He leaves with his mother and sister on a spaceship. They take off, but somewhere along the line there's a malfunction, and all the crew members somehow end up being killed except Jean, who is the lone survivor. Jean ends up waking up to a foster family, but then this whole situation, this whole controversy, and this whole propaganda about this whole disaster causes everyone to really find this boy and really ask him if he was really involved directly in this. And at the same time, Jean tries to fight all these things from happening until he also meets one girl by the name of Toa. Thus, he gets himself immersed into a lot of chases, hijinks, especially involving the ISDA, who really want to capture this boy and ask him what on earth has actually happened. Well, this is quite interesting, but my major problem with the story is I feel like it takes itself way too seriously. It is kind of depressing to watch at times and kind of boring as well. Sure, sometimes depressing things can be done well, but this one, it's kind of jarring to watch. It doesn't help with the fact that there are a lot of plot conveniences, convoluted explanations of why these things happen, and a lot of plot points which just came the hell out of nowhere just to really move the plot along. And, well, that's just it. And also another thing that mars this series is also the amount of fan service, especially found in a lot of the female characters, most notably the main villainess Garnet McLean, and even one of the dragons, Machina. And of course, there is also some male fan service as well. And even alongside that, there are also these beings in which these humans get themselves into and have this sort of resonance called dragons, in which they get to keep as their companions in battle. But like I said, as an anime which involves sci-fi, action, drama, I felt like it lacked a lot of things. I felt like it lacked a lot of excitement, a lot of tension, and instead we're treated to a lot of plot conveniences and a lot of instances where we don't really get to see the characters grow and develop, and which is also a shame because, well, when it comes to sci-fi, fantasy, and action anime, I expect a lot. I expect badass characters. I expect a lot of characters who are willing to take the challenge and really kick the crap out of their opponents and then just really do what they can to make it. But no, we just don't really get that much here. So the story is, without a doubt, a huge mess, which really left me dropping the series almost entirely. And then we get to the animation. I have to say that in terms of its animation, Studio Gonzo, well, it does a pretty good job with it. And when it comes to the animation, it's not as bad as I make it out to be. Now, like I said before, Studio Gonzo is a studio that is quite infamous in terms of how they animate certain, well, anime. Like, there are times in which the animation could look really nice. Take, for example, the likes of Basilisk and Chrono Crusade, and to some extent, Welcome to the NHK. But there are moments in which there can be inconsistencies, and some of them can also involve certain flubs on the animation. But I have to say that despite those flubs, the animation is still pretty nice to look at, especially with the whole transformation sequence of the humanoid dragons, and even a lot of the color schemes, which really enhance the show well. So the animation is quite decent. The music is, well, okay, but it's nothing to really write home about. I didn't really care for the opening, even though it's well sung. I didn't really give too much of a crap about the ending song, even though I will admit that Yukari Fukui does a very good job singing this song. I just felt like it was well, it just didn't stand out. The music in general doesn't really stand out. It's not really worth buying the OST, and it just doesn't really leave a great impression on me. The characters, oh my goodness, these characters, especially Jean in particular. Now, Jean is pretty much the main character of this show, but I don't really care about him as a main hero. He's quite bland in his personality. He almost has no personality to speak of, other than he can be quite the emo kid sometimes. And I don't really like these tropes in particular. He has a lot of these tropes which make certain anime protagonists like Shinji Ikari look a lot more butch than him. He doesn't really have any personality to make him stand out compared to other male anime characters. He doesn't do anything until much later in the series, and even though he does have a few good moments here and there, he just doesn't stand out. There are a lot of times in which he needs saving by Towa. And I'm like thinking to myself, why is Jin the main character? It makes me wonder that why isn't Towa the main character? Maybe it's because we've seen a lot of anime in which we have a lot of these kick-ass action girls, so why can't Towa be the main character? Why does this show devote its time to him? Why does the show even devote its time to this whole conspiracy going on? I don't understand. Jean doesn't really do himself a favor as a main character. He doesn't really stand out for me, even though he does have a few good moments here and there. But that's just it. Towa, well, I have to say that she is a lot more decent than Jin. She also does carry the weight of the show, only a teensy-weensy bit. But at times her character can be kind of, well, finicky. She wants Jean, but sometimes she runs away from him. And she kind of likes Gio, and it's like, I don't know. Granted, Towa is a very strong and capable girl, but there are times in which she just has so many flaws that make me scratch my head. So I have to say that Towa is slightly better than Jean, but not that much. And then we have Gio, who at first is Kazuki's dragon, but then when Jean, well, sort of took a ride on Gino's back, Gio automatically becomes him. I have to say that Gio is quite fascinating as a character. He's not the deepest character. He's not the greatest character, but he's still a pretty decent character. Well, what really makes him decent is that he is a very badass, tough, stoic male character. He's not like the most original, but at least he has a lot of good moments here and there. And it kind of makes me wonder, okay, here's another character that probably should have been the main character and one that should have been focused on. A badass main character who can just kick a lot of ass and really just do it in a very, very calm manner. Of course, it's nothing groundbreaking or innovative, but still, I probably would have loved to have Gio as a main character. And then we get Kazuki Tachibana. Now, I definitely agree with Nate on this. He's pretty much a very despicable character. But I also like to add this. He's also an idiot. Oh yes, this little bastard of a character is nothing more than a selfish, stupid, idiotic little prick. He did start off okay, but somewhere along the line he gets a lot more clingy and a lot more illogical and a lot more stupid as the series progresses. And it makes me wonder, why couldn't Kazuki just die immediately? Seriously, this little twerp really doesn't deserve to be one of the main characters. In fact, I probably would have taken out Kazuki entirely. That's how lame he is as a character. He does nothing more than just bitch, moan, and whine, and even try to kill his best friend. Over what? Just because Gio no longer wants Kazuki, but instead appointed Jin? Well, that's pretty much illogical. Yeah, let's just say that Kazuki is someone I just can't really stand. And of course we have other characters like Akira and Makina who are okay, but don't really stand out that much. Ziglinda, well, she's a brat. She does have her decent moments, but she is very bratty. She's your stereotypical kid diva. That's just it. But I have to say that the character that I actually like the most here has to be one of the main villainesses, Garnet McLean. I mean, this character is so freaking fascinating. The command that she has, her presence on screen, and even though she's pretty much fan service material, she does have a lot of great things going for her. Which is kind of a shame because we probably would have loved to have the series revolve around her. Villainous protagonist, that probably would have been a first. That probably would have been a much better idea. But regardless, let's just say that I'm not impressed with the cast of characters. Sure, there were some minor characters who, even though they don't have a little bit of screen time, but still managed to really move the series along at a pretty okay rate, but they add nothing to the table. Nobody really does anything here, except, let's say, Toa, Garnet, and at times Gio and the other dragons like Howling Star. Let's just say that the cast of characters is basically unimpressive. But the voice acting is yet another story. The voice acting is at least good on both tracks. With the Japanese track, you have the likes of Daisuke Ono, Tetsuya Kakihara, Minori Chihari, and Junichi Suabe, Nana Mizuki, Mamoru Miyano, Saeko Chiba, Yuko Goto, and Joji Nakata, and just to name a few, and they do a pretty good job with their roles. Now on the English dub, you have Justin Pate, who is very well known for his role as Seaman from Yu Yu Hakusho, the ever-wonderful Colleen Clinkenbeard, the awesome Todd Habercorn, the ever-so-godly Christopher Sabat, and then you also have the likes of Caitlin Glass, Brina Palencia, Jeremy Lee, Cynthia Krantz, and many, many other Funimation veteran voice actors. Oh, and also Lucy Christian as well. I will have to say that both of these, well, on both sides of the pond, they do a very good job with their characters, even though I've heard them in much better works. Let's just say that the voice acting is quite decent on both tracks, but I heard them in a lot better works. That's just it. So overall, it's no wonder why I'm so unimpressed with Dragonaut the Resonance. With characters I don't really care about, with a story that seems to go all over the map, and at times being one of Studio Gonzo's other dud anime, so to say. It's no surprise why I dropped it. And with that said, I give this anime a 1.5 out of 5. It did have some okay elements, and it did have some pretty good voice acting, but it's not enough to really stand out. It's a huge disappointment, and if everything else in this anime would have been tweaked, then I probably would have enjoyed it a lot more. I'd also like to thank Nate Milbank for appointing me to be his assistant scriptwriter, and it was a lot of fun working with you, Nate. It was a lot of fun. I do apologize for some of the delays in the whole script writing process, but still, it was a lot of fun working with you, and I really hope to be involved in a lot more projects with you someday. And maybe even a crossover. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to tune in later with a review of Janacek's Vets Makropoulos, which will be shown at the Staatsopernsche Theater. I really do hope I can make it to this opera today. So until then, see you later, everybody.